Hooray, 5 people. I also hate this camera. That's the only one I got. Can you just hold it right there? Thank you. Am I in shot?
Not your head.
Don't need that bit.
Here we go. Now you're all in.
Alright. Hello and welcome. I'm Craig Rothermel, and I'm here today to talk to you about Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon was one of France's great leaders. He conquered Europe and helped France transition from the medieval era to the industrial one. His accomplishments are many and far-reaching. Today we are going to look at his life and see what he did to earn his reputation. So why would you need to believe me? Well, I do consider myself a history buff. I have read a number of books and watched a lot of historical biographies on Napoleon. I've gotten a good insight into his life and his many accomplishments and to Napoleon's life. This is a big and complicated topic, and I'll have to move fast in a speech in order to cover everything. So let's get started. To begin with Napoleon's life, according to the Encyclopedia Britannica, its author Mr. Gauchat, Napoleon was born on the French island of Corsica in 1769 to minor nobility. According to his author from the Encyclopedia Britannica, Napoleon went to a prestigious French military academy at the age of 9. Also, the same author wrote that Napoleon did not speak French natively and was bullied because of this fact. This made him focus on his studies, where he became very talented in math and reading, which would serve him well in his military career. In 1759, Napoleon graduated from the military academy as an artillery officer, according to Mr. Gauchat. Now, as an artillery officer, this is where Napoleon's career starts to take off. During this time, the French Revolution started to kick off, and he was assigned back to his native island of Corsica to help suppress a royalist uprising there. This was Napoleon's first taste of combat and first chance in command. Unfortunately for Napoleon, he was forced off the island, and his forces were retreated back to France, where they were reassigned to the artillery for the siege of Toulon. Here he led the French to their first great victory in the rebellion against the monarchy, forcing the British and royalist forces out of the fort. After this, he and his army were sent to Egypt, where, according to Mr. Heaney of the website noteventhepast.org, his forces looted a great number of Egyptian artifacts and sent them back to France, where they remain today. Napoleon would lose the battle in Egypt, so on his return to France, he would return to Paris. Upon realizing the weakness of the current government, called the Directory, he would help overthrow that government and make himself first consul in 1799. He would also become emperor shortly later, according to the Encyclopedia Britannica. Now that Napoleon had control of France, he instituted a number of reforms. According to Mr. Gauchat, he helped simplify and standardize the tax code. This would boost state revenue and make it easier for citizens to pay their taxes. This would, according to Mr. Gauchat as well, that he would reform the army into smaller corps. This would allow them to move freely and fast around the land and live off the land as well. Lastly, according to Mr. Gauchat, he would sell the Louisiana Territory to the United States to help fund his bankrupt country and build up the army. This would come in great handy with the amount of wars he was about to face. The other powers in Europe were not happy with the French Revolution, as it was spreading the ideas of equality and democracy around to their neighboring borders. According to Mr. Gauchat, this was one of the main reasons other powers would decide to invade France in the War of the Third Coalition. Napoleon, with his faster army, was able to destroy part of the Austrian army and then surround them in the Battle of Austerlitz, which was a major French victory that was considered Napoleon's masterpiece and would cause a peace arrangement in 1805. This was not all good news for Napoleon, as he was planning on invading the British, but he would soon receive word after this battle that his fleet was destroyed off the port of Toulon, destroying any hopes of victory against Britain. So naturally, he would go after Spain, who would fight against him in the War of the Fifth Coalition and try to invade Portugal, which was resisting the colonial system, according to Mr. Gauchat. This would lead to a massive guerrilla war on the Spanish Peninsula, starting in 1808 and not finishing until 1814. 14. This would sap many of Napoleon's strength. So after a brief diplomatic incident with Russia after this, he would invade Russia with 600,000 men, and after a brutal winter campaign would only return with 10,000. Not being able to defend France, he would be defeated right outside Paris and sent into exile. Now, if this was any other commander, this would have been the end, but not for Napoleon. He would escape his exile, come back, force Louis XVI to run away after shortly regaining power in a bloodless coup. And then, after one other short war and a few more battles, he would be ultimately exiled to the island of St. Helena in 1821, where he would shortly die after. So what was Napoleon's mark on history? Well, he would cause many more bloody battles in Europe for the many more years to come, but also would help spread the metric system and ideas of the French Revolution across the continent. I would leave you with this thought about what Napoleon would think about himself, and what would you do with his power. He had a saying that would go, glory is fleeting, but obscurity is forever. Keep that in mind while making your big decisions. Thank you for coming. We're excited page. More we're excited. Thank you for coming.